This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned.
Clay, thanks for joining us as always, man.
Go Pascal.com.
Really, it's not often that we shy away from Razorback conversations throughout this show, but all anyone wants to text or call in about is this Brandon Miller, and I guess it's pertinent to the Razorbacks since they play in Tuscaloosa on Saturday. But what have you made of all this in the last week or so?
Well, it seems like there was one train of thought that he ought to be suspended, the coach ought to be suspended for insensitive remarks, and now we've got another set of information that changes the dialogue a little bit, and some people don't want to walk back their original thought that he should be suspended, but based on what I see, he is unfortunately going to be viewed as doing something horrible by one set, fan base, and not so much by another fan base. And I don't think that, in the state of Alabama, they probably want him to play, guys.
Yeah. How fine is that line? I mean, we're not legal guys, but we've been around. How fine is the line on what Brandon Miller did?
Well, I think that you'd have to get into his mind to see what he did if it was really wrong. He's taking a gun to a friend in the middle of the night. That's wrong. But as far as is it against the law? Probably not. And did he, aid in a murder? I don't know. You'd have to get into his mind, and I don't think any of us are going to get there. I mean, I really don't.
I got a question on that. What if that gun was Brandon Miller's instead of who was registered?
Well, it wasn't, Ty.
Well, what I'm asking, does that change it? Is the fact that it's Darius Miles' gun and not Brandon Miller's, is that
that's
change?
Your game. You play it, I'm not. It's not his gun. I mean, it's I hate to do that. I mean, it's like, it wasn't his gun, Ty. And, we were saying it was, and that was different. But it's not, and I don't think we should do that anymore. I mean, that's gone, and it's past. It was not his gun.
Well, who's we? I mean, I wasn't saying that because the initial report didn't say
I would say that 90% of the people were saying it's his gun, and they were wrong. I mean, I heard it. I heard it on the afternoon show yesterday, including, the hosts were talking about like that was his gun, and it wasn't. But we didn't know that, right? That all has changed.
I think in the initial AL.com report that came out, in the detective's testimony, Detective Culpepper, I think they initially said it was Darius Miles' gun.
But I kept hearing people saying he brought his gun to him, and it was not correct.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I think we'll forever view Brandon Miller differently, and I think we view Nate Oates differently. And Brandon Miller's going to play a few more games, however many that is, now in Alabama, probably 10 or less, somewhere in that neighborhood with postseason, and then he's going to move on, probably be one of the top picks in the NBA draft. Nate Oates is another question, and Clay, I want to ask you: do you view Nate Oates in the light of all this and how he handled it, and you can make what you want of the remarks and what he knew at that point following a practice and a media session. But do you view Nate Oates as differently as a coach this morning?
Probably somewhat. Yeah, I think so. And I think that everybody else is feeling the same way. And there's probably a lot of people in Alabama, that aren't Auburn fans that are like, wished he'd handle it differently, but he's still our coach. But it's when he walks into an arena, he's gonna hear the boos, and maybe that's the way it should be too. He's the best player in the conference, and he got favor because he's the best player in the conference, in my opinion, by his coach.
There's no question. And by the
system, it's going to be. What's really interesting, Tommy, is how is he going to be viewed, not by us. This is the critical part. How will he be viewed when he goes into a home recruiting? Will mothers like that he stood up for a player, or will they not like that he might have been cavalier in his attitude about something that happened way past bedtime?
Yeah. Well, make no mistake, or at least in my mind, this is the beginning of the end for Nate Oates at Alabama. And it may not be in a few weeks. It may be another season or two, but it's exactly what you just said. And, you know, I guess they could win the national title, and in recruiting circles, maybe this is forgotten. The transfer portal so prominent in today's game. But I think we'll look back and in a year or two, because trust has been broken at some level between him and administration, probably with him and some of the fan base, and then also the recruiting base. I think this, you know, whether it's a year from now or 2 years from now, but we'll trace it back to these moments and why Nate Oates won't be the coach for forever and ever, amen, at Bama.
I'll take you back to Nolan Richardson's time, which was really interesting. You know, he had a great player, one of the best in program's history, leading scorer all time, Todd Day, and disciplined him over an off-season incident and held him out of the first semester, and then made him come off the bench for the second semester, the rest of the season. And I'm not, when it all was said and done, not a lot was pinned on Todd, and that to me was was really interesting. Nolan, he completely went the other direction as opposed to what Nate Oates has done. And may have punished Todd past the point that he should have been.
Yeah, and you know, everybody wants to, well, our coach would have this, our coach. We don't have a lot of history with Eric Musselman and discipline items that we're aware of. I mean, the things that come to public light, and I'm certainly glad he's not having to deal with anything like this. But from the few things we do have examples of, it seems like he runs a much sterner, stricter system.
Well, Kamani Johnson was suspended in missed games because of an incident. I mean, there isn't any doubt about that.
Right.
And I'm sure Ty remembers that. Mm-hmm. And so when something happens, he reacts. When they miss practice or miss class for sure, or they're late for a shoot around, something happens. And if it happens in class attendance, something happens. And you are disciplined, and I think he's he is tough-minded, and he defers to what's right as far as the discipline, and it might hurt the team.
And this was on a much smaller scale, and we don't know what actually was behind the scenes. You remember earlier this year when I can't remember who asked him about Jalen Graham, and he's just like, nope, just didn't play, coach's decision. And people were under the impression that it was either something at practice or something. As you're saying, Clay, it sure seems like even in small situations, swift action is taken. But you brought up an interesting angle. What is the perception of parents that you're talking about on this? Like, what do you think a majority are thinking when it comes to this Brandon Miller situation? And they've potentially had a son that could play in Tuscaloosa at Alabama. How do you think they're thinking about this, or do we have to just wait till it all plays out before they make an assertion on this?
Yeah, I think it'll be both ways, but it will definitely be some that see what happened as a real problem. How many is it going to be another brand? Do they lose a Brandon Miller because of that? Perhaps.
Okay. Well,
I just think the game's moving so much closer to the portal than high school kids. That's where we're headed. Yeah, it'll have an impact because Brandon Millers don't come around every day. But
a 20-year-old doesn't even ask his mom and dad, right?
Right. I mean, just the portal. The portal's just, I think, going to be the dominant way most programs fill their roster moving forward.
Yeah, but if there is a Brandon Miller out there that has to go to school 1 year, do you get him or you don't? That's
correct.
I mean, he got this one, and they're going to win a championship because of it, right?
Yeah.
He's going to play. He is going to play.
Well, on that subject, Clay, and I remember, listen, you were spot on in the offseason. I remember you telling me and Tommy, Alabama's got a great recruiting class, bunch of 6'9", 6'10 guys, which Miller, I think, 6'9", Clowney's 6'10", because that's what Butch was telling you in the offseason. They've been great. I mean, Bama's the best team in the SEC. They're probably the best team in all of college basketball. But with this incident, how does that shape your rethinking on their ability to win the national championship and win the conference and maybe win it in Nashville?
It can go both ways, Ty, and you know that, and that's why you're asking the question. This can cause problems inside the team. It can cause the coach to be shaken and distracted, or it can cause this team to be galvanized more behind Brandon Miller. We don't know how the dynamics of this team work inside the locker room, whether they love him or they're jealous of him or what. So it'll be something to watch over the next 2 weeks. They still got all their bullets, and I'm sorry for using that phrase, but they got them all.
Yeah.
And they're really good, and I haven't seen, I watched the Tennessee game, could see that coming. That was, but that on a neutral floor, to me, they're the best team. And I don't think Houston has played near the schedule that Alabama has. They might win on a neutral floor when they play again. Hard to beat a really good team twice.
Saturday's the big day for Bama from my seat, not just because they're playing Arkansas, but because of the way they performed last night. Worst team in the conference, they go to their place, and South Carolina takes them to overtime. That can be easily explained away by the distraction of what happened leading up to that game. You make it 2 in a row against a much better Arkansas team. Now there's real questions and self-doubt and problems creeping in for Alabama. I think Saturday's a sentinel moment for Nate Oates, this program, and how they come out and what level they play at against the Razorbacks.
2 things to watch for. Yeah, what happens on the court. The other is what happens in the stands. Are all their people there? Are they supportive?
Good point.
Is it or is their stomach just turned inside out by disgust? I would suspect they're all going to be there, and they're going to support their team, and they're going to support Brandon Miller. It's really an interesting thing when you ask a fan of one team, how do you view this? Well, we're all with distaste, right? I mean, I feel that way. Ty, you probably. I'm asking. I don't know. Or is this distasteful for you with what's happened?
Yeah, I mean, I can't claim my whole thing's been all morning. I can't get over the text that was sent to him, and then from Darius Miles, I need my joint gun, a derogatory slang. Racist term, just got a fake-in, which fake-in, according to Urban Dictionary, means threaten. I can't get over that portion of this, that he needs his gun because he feels threatened. And my understanding is that Brandon received that while he was driving. I don't know how you don't read that. Maybe he didn't. Maybe I'm wrong on that. That's the whole argument that I cannot get over in the course of this conversation.
Yeah, I had a hard time really figuring out all the meaning of that. And
me too.
What goes on in that? In their world. Their world is different than my world. There's no doubt that how they live and how I live, I'm talking about young basketball players in their world, and it's different than what mine is and yours is. And I mean, I think that's true.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from the NFL and bowl season to esports. You'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts.